This is the IoT for All Media Network. Hello, friends in IoT. Welcome to Let's Connect, the newest podcast in the IoT for All Media Network. I am Ken Briota, Editorial Director for IoT for All, and your host. If you enjoy this episode, please remember to like, subscribe, rate, review, and comment on all your favorite podcasting platforms. And to keep up with all the IoT insights you need, visit iotforall.com. Before we get into our episode, the IoT market will surpass $1 trillion in the next few years. Is your business ready to capitalize on this new and growing trend? Use Leverage's powerful IoT solutions development platform to efficiently create turnkey IoT products that you can white label and resell under your own brand. Help your customers increase operational efficiency, improve customer experience, or even unlock new revenue streams with IoT. To learn more, go to iotchangeseverything.com. That's iotchangeseverything.com. Now, let's connect. Really happy today to have Erik Fossum-Farahvag, the founder and president of Disruptive Technologies. Erik, welcome to Let's Connect. In case folks aren't familiar with you or with Disruptive Tech, can you give us a little bit of your background and sort of where you guys fit into IoT?
Of course. So Disruptive is making the world's smallest wireless sensor, and it's always on. It's the size of a stamp, and it has a battery lifetime of 15 years. So it's something completely different. And I guess the listeners may wonder, how is that possible? So our background is from semiconductors, and we built the world's first digital radio transceivers in CMOS technology. And then in another company with the lowest power microcontroller in the world. And this made us realize how hard it was to build a reliable, easy-to-use sensors. So that was basically the idea behind Disruptive Technology.
You guys are operating mostly in the sort of smart building space right now, is that right?
I would say we're agnostic to the type of application, really. But in order to succeed business-wise, you need to focus. So facility management is a good market for us, if you can call it a market. It's a lower market. So the hard FM environment, more on kind of the predictive maintenance on the HVAC and the systems and so on, CMMS systems. On the soft facility management, it's cleaning efficiency and cleaning validation, which is the key areas. What we as a company are doing is to deliver raw data from sensors and into these applications, software applications that is already in use. So we're kind of a telco sensors.
Really cool. I think that there's a really good case to be made in IoT up for sort of agnosticism to use case, where something just works wherever you need it to work to do the thing you need it to do. But I do want to talk about facilities management with you because it's a really interesting time for that right now. I think that over the last year, pretty much now, when the whole world has been dealing with COVID and distance working and things like that, the commercial real estate and the facilities space has been one of the sectors that has had to make the most adjustment, and I think is one of the sectors that's in for a really rough time coming up if they don't make some changes in their operational procedures. And I think that the smart building and facilities management IoT space has a lot to offer those facilities managers who are looking to not just survive the next period of time, but grow and learn how to evolve their businesses. Can you talk a little bit about what you've seen over the last year and sort of what that industry looks like right now?
Yeah, thanks for the question. We, as mentioned, we released Market in 2019. And before that, we did some early piloting with various cloud platforms. But these cloud platforms, these software applications, were basically focusing on building their own applications, and they didn't look for data from the world out there. That has completely changed over the last 2 years, I would say, after we released the market. And I think the COVID situation has accelerated it as well, because you do want to have data from the field, remote monitoring. You do want to understand what's going on in in your facilities without being there. So we had rollouts in the US and Europe at the same time of more than 1,000 sites, just to collect data so that corporate owners can understand what's going on out there. And we didn't get any of those requests earlier. So it's a completely different change of requests that that we're getting. I would also say that earlier it was maybe more only about say cleaning efficiency and some specific use cases that were kind of known of from before. But then we started to hear about cleaning validation, something completely new. I mean, do you need to know that it's clean? Yes, you do, because there's no people here. So you need to know if there was someone there and actually clean. And this is getting quite advanced. You need to recognize the patterns of the cleaners there. They might need to confirm on certain places. And so this is what sensors can do. So you can both use it to increase efficiency and to kind of validate the quality of the cleaning.
Yeah, I think that sort of idea, the cleaning validation, the quality assurance aspect of facility sensors is sort of a door opening toward what future smarter facilities might look like. Because I think that, and I'm just sort of prognosticating a little bit here, that companies have learned a lot in the last year, but one of the things they've learned is that they may not need as much physical space as they thought they did. Their workers can be more remote and they can stay effective and productive. And so the raw square footage in a facility might have to be used differently. There might be more shared space.
Tons of use cases into that space as well. Desk occupancy, for example. Mm-hmm. I should admit that was by luck that we have a sensor that can cover these kind of applications well. A temperature sensor is used to detect if there's a desk or not. And analytics with a partner are detecting are doing signal processing to decide if someone is sitting there or not. So the sensor is empty, the flush rates, water usage, and so on has been requested.
Yeah. And I think that the interesting thing about that is that I sort of envision this really interesting sort of thing happening to commercial spaces that it looked like a lot of multi-use buildings in smart city applications are doing, where the building becomes this sort of hub of activity, a sort of micro community. And I think that this kind of smart building and smart facilities technology, where you're doing validations, where you're doing more than just monitoring, makes a commercial building into more of a community space, and a space that can still be a viable business for a facility manager or building owner.
Yeah, I think also that's something that we've seen over the last, I would say, 3, 4, 5 years with the co-working space and so on. Mm-hmm. That what they try to offer is not the building itself, but exactly what you say. It's kind of a way, a place to meet and discuss ideas. And then to that point, we've had pilots with several of them recognized on there, and just what they were interested in was data about activity patterns. So, for example, how often was a door open and closed? Was there people at the dispenser there at that time, and how many people were there? And using this to stimulate for various patterns as well, because then they knew that or would anticipate that people were thriving and do a better job and discuss more and so on.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I'm excited about it. I think it's a good development. I think it'll mean more sort of sustainable building, more good environmental thinking around buildings. It'll mean we put up fewer buildings probably, and that's good too. More open space and stuff like that. Can you identify, I mean, are there some parts of the world, some communities that are leading in this way, that are sort of really being aggressive about rethinking facilities, or some companies even that you've dealt with?
Yeah, one specific was we had a quite good pilot with WeWork earlier on,
Okay.
and that had an analytic team behind this as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they were going at length to understand what was going on in the office environment.
A bunch of folks that I've talked to have said that WeWork's eventual troubles aside, they had a really good idea that may have been 2 years too early. And if they were coming up right now, which apparently they're coming back, but if they had been coming up right now, their model could be the thing that saves commercial buildings.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say, even from my point of perspective, which obviously thinks that there should be sensors everywhere, they were really instrumenting some parts of their space to understand what was going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I think that their problem was not technological; it was organizational, and that's probably enough said about that. The commercial real estate and the facilities management space, I think, is a really interesting and a space now, and it's one that's been sort of about to adopt IoT for a bunch of years in mass, and is now sort of been pushed into the space where any smart facilities manager is going to be trying to incorporate not beyond the HVAC stuff that everybody talks about into intelligent use of space. And so that's really exciting to me to hear that you guys have been doing some pilots and that you've been seeing that happening sort of around.
I think what we see now is that it moves over the last 1.5, 2 years. The pilots, we had 350 pilots before we released to market, or in the time that we released to market. And many of these are now going into, I would say, production. And it's accelerated by COVID and the facility management. There seems to be a very adaptive environment in the facility management space these days. But we're also focusing on manufacturing, warehousing, and energy grid, which also can benefit hugely from more data. And today there's what I would say dumb equipment out there that could be easily digitally retrofitted with sensors, not only from us, but we could be part of that.
Yeah, I think that the sort of industrial infrastructure world is sort of at a cusp. Like, they've been adopting for a long time in bits and pieces and upgrading and sort of doing these bolt-on get smarter type solutions for probably, fairly 10 years, maybe 15, depending on how you count it. I'm interested to hear whether or not you've heard about like new construction spaces, smart power plants and things like that are coming up as we've sort of got better systems management across the IoT stack. Have you been seeing those kinds of implementations happening?
Yeah, so our focus has been to address the sort of simple applications out there as the starting point. So more to what today is dumb, uninstrumented, and to instrument that more as a package, which where we have found that substations at a certain level is a good fit for us. But on the plant level, we've had many requests. There's pilots as well, but it's maybe not that easy scalable before it reaches the corporate level of these utilities. And that so it's kind of a one-off sell to the pilots, to the plants and with the pilots, but kind of reaching scale with them is harder.
Yeah, I've heard that from a few folks that I've talked to. The case for the scale implementation hasn't quite been proved out enough for some of the folks in the procurement department, basically. And
there seem to be a lot of people involved. I mean, it's critical infrastructure, and there's a lot of things that need to be ticked off in order to roll out. So sure. It does make sense.
Yeah, and I think we'll get there. I think it's just going to be time, and more and more
Hope
proof
so.
of concept. Let's shift gears a little bit because you're, founder of Disruptive Technologies, and I know a lot of our listeners are either founders or folks who'd like to be founders. So I'd love to talk a little bit about your experience in the world of founding a company in IoT. What's that like, and how did you get started?
Yeah, I'm just to be honest, I'm just a really, really deep nerd into physics and microelectronics. So I started to work for this company that made these digital radio transceivers. I'm educated in analog electronics and basically physics and modeling. And this company I joined were acquired by Texas Instruments in 2005. I was ChipCon, and Texas Instruments had a lot of good business on that afterwards. Worked there for 3 years, and Texas Instruments is a fantastic company to work for. But I also saw the opportunity to go with a new startup in Norway that made its lowest polar microcontroller in the world. And that company was acquired in 2013 by Silicon Laboratories, another American company. And so I don't know much more than startups, really. But what I would say, it's want me kind of to describe it. It's fantastic in one way, but it's also a nightmare. I mean, it's the worst thing I ever done every time I go into this, because it's really, really hard work. But when you achieve a milestone, or when the release market for us in 28th of February 2019 was like amazing for Disruptive, and that's kind of what you're working for. At least I do. And then there's always something that we haven't thought about. In Disruptive, we thought that we would release to market within 3 years and spend like 10 million-ish USD. It turned out to be way more. Building manufacturing lines, building all a lot of things that we pack and ship system, logistics systems, drivers for telco, SIM cards, whatnot, fleet management systems, and so on and so on. And all of this is a challenge for a startup, which needs to raise money and need to kind of maybe spend the same resources, which is not educated within this field matter, and then reallocate something different. But I would say that dynamics is also something that triggers me, and hopefully others that are starting a company.
Yeah, I think that you have to sort of be in love with that work reward cycle if you're going to be starting a company in any industry. Unfortunately, we're just about out of time, Erik. So thank you so much for chatting with me today and telling us a little bit about you and about what you've been working on at Disruptive Technologies. Thanks again to all of you listening out there. I hope you've enjoyed our discussion, and if you have, please make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our episodes. We post every week, and I hope you'll leave us a rating, review, and comment on your favorite podcasting platform. If you'd like to suggest a guest, please click on the link in the description. And we also have a great sister podcast on our network called the IoT for All podcast, so make sure you check that out.
Hey Ken, let me jump in real quick and introduce your audience to another awesome show on the IoT for All Media Network, the show that started it all, the IoT for All podcast, where I bring on experts from around the world to showcase successful digital transformation across industries. We talk about use cases and IoT solutions available in the market, and provide an opportunity for those companies to share advice to help the world better understand and adopt IoT. So if you're out there listening and haven't checked it out, be sure to go check out the IoT for All podcast, available everywhere.
Thank you, Ryan. Now get back to your show. And thank you all for joining us on this episode of Let's Connect. I've been Ken Briota, editorial director of IoT for All, and your host. Our music is Sneaking on September by Otis McDonald. And this has been a production of the IoT for All Media Network. Take care of yourselves. You are listening to the IoT for All Media Network.